Welcome to the Underwater Podcast, where we take a deep dive into the world of underwater portrait photography, cinematography, and everything in between. With me, your host, Brett Stanley. Welcome back to the Underwater Podcast, and this week I'm chatting with Hal Wells, safety diver and co-owner of Hollywood Divers. Hal shares with us his experiences working on film sets, how he plans for underwater productions, and what it's like to deal with talent and crew under the water. We also discuss what it's like being addicted to scuba diving, and how water people seem to be the most chill people around. Okay, let's dive in. Hal, welcome to the Underwater Podcast.
Hey, Brett. Nice to be here.
How's things, man? How's your pandemic year been?
Well, I mean, being in business in the dive shop business for 20 years and then having something invisible almost take your business out. It's not ideal, but luckily we're still here.
That's great. Did you guys have to pivot at all through that whole thing? I mean, your business is such a physical kind of business. How did you deal with people not being able to have no contact or anything?
I mean, we just kind of took cues from what everyone else was doing and what other businesses were doing. You know, we had to shut down, and that was like a city ordinance. So we shut down and we just started taking internet orders. And, you know, I'd never seen Hollywood shut down to that level. So we weren't really doing any, you know, underwater shooting or teaching any classes or all the travel around the world pretty much shut down. So we just basically tried to fill as many mail orders, and we had customers calling, asking when we deliver to them locally, which we did. So that, you know, and then, you know, the only other thing I can say that kept us going was, you know, applying for all the assistance that was available. And luckily we got some of that. So.
Oh, that's good. So that was helpful. That kind of kept you guys afloat.
It totally did. I mean, not only us, I mean, just about every business owner that I talk to, they say without the assistance, they wouldn't be there.
Yeah. So. And then, so since Hollywood's kind of opened up, as a safety diver yourself, how is that? What was the transition of getting back into it? Like, did it kind of just start up overnight, or was there a bit of a lead into it?
You mean post-pandemic getting back into it? I mean, I'm just starting to see it now. It's people are becoming more brave. They're vaccinated, and they're nobody on their crew is sick, and the hospitalizations are going down. And Hollywood's working again, and I'm starting to see water work. It's music videos, it's commercials. I mean, we've just been lucky that we're in a position, and in the neighborhood, Universal Studios open back up again. Yeah. So that's helping, you know, that really helps us. I've never seen Universal Studios shut down in the whole time I've been in that neighborhood. It's just crazy to see them just, shut the gates. And all the TV shows are starting to work again. Yeah. Stunt people are working, and that's kind of our, you know, the local crew. If the local crew is working, our business does fine.
Yeah, exactly. Because you get kind of caught up in that. Like, you get that knock-on effect of being pulled into those.
Yeah, I mean, the only other time I've seen anything like even close to this was the writer's strike about 12 years ago or 13 years ago. The writer's strike, which we didn't think would affect us. Once the content dried up and people stopped shooting, our business just went straight down. So,
that's interesting.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah,
it wasn't fun, but it was interesting.
I remember that writer's strike because I think I was back in New Zealand, and we would get all these programs that would just kind of end really weirdly. Like, at the end of the season would be just like, hang on, that was strange. Like, they didn't tie anything up or anything, and then, you know, you kind of Google it, and it'd be like, because the writer's strike, so the writers were striking for better pay or conditions or whatever, and so they would stop writing content. Yeah. But I hadn't really thought about it from, you know, below the line sort of situation where it was, you know, killing the business of everyone else involved.
Yeah, I mean, our customers in Hollywood, you know, running a dive shop in Hollywood, you think, well, why is there a dive shop in Hollywood? Don't you guys need to be near the beach? But no, it's, you know, the caterers, the electricians, like I was saying, the stunt people, you know, the actors, the producers, the musicians, everyone. It's all tied together. And when there's no content being made, It's really bad. This is our industry in this town. It's our neighborhood. We're not mining coal or making steel. It's ideas.
Yeah.
And then those ideas have to keep flowing or else the town stops.
Yeah, it's quite amazing how much of this city is wrapped up in that industry. It's almost, all the eggs in one basket.
Yeah. Yes, I agree.
So how did you even get into this? What was your kind of start in the film industry?
Well, as a kid, I grew up back east around Raleigh, North Carolina, and I was into community theater. I went to college. I studied method acting at university, and I got a degree in it. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was hanging out with some future moguls, film moguls. So I went to college with Sandra Bullock, and I went to one of my roommates in college was the guy who created Dawson's Creek and wrote the Scream movies. And then I had another friend who was an actress, and they all moved to LA. And I thought I was going to go to New York, but I ended up following my friend Anne, who was an actress, follow her out to LA. And she's like, "You'll love it out here." So when I got out here, I got an agent. I started at the time, there was no online, auditions. You drove around town and you went to auditions, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I started doing that. And at the same time, I met this guy named John Godfrey, who was a scuba instructor, and he was from Texas. And we just hit it off because I'm from the South. He's from the South. I was a triathlete doing races, and he's like, "Yeah, you got to try scuba diving." So,
all right,
I got into it, and I just became addicted to it.
Right.
And then I decided as soon as I did my second or third class with John, I'm going to do this for a living. And I got lucky and I became a rescue diver and a dive master and an instructor. And then I got on a film called Crimson Tide.
Oh, right.
And that was with Tony Scott. And he was there actually shooting for a couple of nights. And I got to be his safety diver. So I just got lucky and fell into it, really. But I was addicted to scuba diving. Was the short answer is I couldn't stop. And I still feel that way about it. I'm addicted to it. It's like, it's a good therapy, to get underwater and be, it's a whole different mindset. So I kind of liken it to the acting thing. It's like escapism. There's a few things in my life where when you're acting, you put your attention on the other person in the scene with you or whatever the action might be. Same thing with scuba diving. It's when you're doing it, you have to focus on that.
Right.
And I like that feeling. So I kept doing it.
Yeah, I guess it's that kind of like, it's almost like a meditation. Like it's a forced focus, like you say. Like it is kind of narrowing your brain so much that everything else kind of relaxes a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say I'm an escapist, and like a lot of scuba divers I meet, and I also ride motorcycles. And motorcycles I grew up riding motorcycles, and that's the same thing. It's like it's an escape. You have to be in the moment in order to do it. And I mean, the film business underwater, that's a whole different ballgame. That's not really diving; it's work. But the scuba diving aspect of it is what ties the whole crew together. You're on a crew with grips, electrics, directors of photography, even, the producers, the actors, everybody has some connection to, if it's a water shoot, of course, they have a connection to the water. So that's what I enjoy, being a part of that. And I've been lucky to be able to do it for money.
Right. So when you say being on set is work as opposed to diving recreationally, have you done any other sort of work-based diving stuff? Like, have you done any commercial diving or anything like that?
Yeah, but not I'm not a welder or I've never been a saturation diver or anything like that. But I've done salvage work where I remember a gypsum company hired me to find a piece of a pulley. They mine gypsum in these quarries around LA, outside of LA, and they fill up with water. When they dig in so deep, they fill up with water. And I remember being called to a gypsum area where they pull this stuff out, and to dive in this milk to find a pulley from a crane that was worth like $5,000. And they wanted me to find it and lift it out of the water with lift bags and a rope and all that. Or another salvage job was some producer down from your neck of the woods. I think he was Australian or New Zealand, or he was he had your same accent, my friend. He calls me up and he goes, "I lost my expensive dental work and he was on the roof of the Peninsula Hotel, if I remember correctly, in Beverly Hills. They had a party. Anyway, he lost his nice dental plate in the pool.
Oh, really?
At a party. I think things got a little rowdy or whatever. Next morning, I go over because he was flying out the next night. I go in and I take the drain off the pool and find his his teeth as going up the elevator in this nice hotel, right? And dressed in scuba gear. Everybody's like, because all I needed was a little bit of air. I had a tiny tank on my back, but people are looking at me like, what are you doing? Right. But he got permission. He got permission for me to go in and remove the drain grate and reach around in there. It took me all of like 7 minutes to find it. So
right.
But that's my commercial diving experience.
Like a pulley and some teeth.
Yeah, 15 feet of water.
That's awesome, though. Like, I mean, it is those sort of weird little jobs that you end up doing, right? Like, it is, yeah. And it must be the same on set. So, I mean, talk about, so what is a safety diver? What does a safety diver do on a film set?
Well, I got into the safety diving, like I was saying earlier. I just kind of fell into it. And my first gig was being a safety diver for one of the biggest directors in Hollywood. And I didn't even really know it. But soon after that, I started to help people. I started to see people around the set. And I was working in a dive shop. So I knew a lot about the equipment. And people who they had, like 12 spare air, these little canisters that you breathe out of, they had like 12 of them laying out on the dock or the deck of the pool. And some of them didn't work, and I was able to fix them and make them work. And I'm like, hey, I might have something here, So you get your fingers in all the pies, like how to repair the stuff, knowing what to bring, knowing what little tricks to pull with stunt people who maybe they can do a high fall and they can drive a car on two wheels, but underwater they're terrified. But they happen to be a stunt double for the actor who's in that film, and he has to be shown underwater. So you got to make that stunt person feel like, I got your back. You're not going to drown. I got this thing right here. It's going to go in your mouth as soon as they call cut. You're fine. And the first couple of takes, they don't believe you, but after that, you win their trust. So a lot of it is winning the trust of the people who are on the set and being able to operate in any department. If the camera guys are having a problem and you can speed their crew up a little bit, you kind of look to see what's going wrong and jump in and help them. If it's okay, sometimes there's union rules and stuff like that. But luckily, I've gotten to safety for every department. Camera is a big one. One of my buddies is Vance Burberry, and he works underwater quite a bit. And I've gotten to go on lots of interesting gigs because of him, safety for him, and then safety for, puppeteers. Like I've had people who have to wrangle, they have an animatronic duck or a creature or whatever. I had to do a commercial with the Aflac duck where they had the actual real ducks and then they had animatronic ducks. And the puppeteers weren't so water savvy. So, just kind of being able to go from department to department and see what the needs are.
Right.
And to keep things flowing. Yeah. And I think most of the time you get hired to do one, we're going to back up the talent, right? We're responsible for the talent. And a lot of times it's that. But sometimes the director of photography isn't a certified diver. And even though he's only in, 6 feet of water, he needs to be taught how to use the equipment and how to clear his ears so his ears don't kill him at the end of the day. And if you're a scuba instructor and you've been on set, the lingo, you get a guy in the water who's never been on scuba before. And by the end of the day, he looks he's ready to get certified, and he gets the shots, he's shooting, he's got a lot of responsibility. Some of these gigs you go on, they got a limited amount of time and he wants to shoot it because he's shooting the rest of the stuff topside. So you try to make him look like a champion, and luckily it's all worked out so far.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing, really. Like you're kind of the underwater like knowledge base when you're on set, I guess, because this is what you do. This is your subject matter. You're specialist, and so everyone's kind of looking to you to kind of make things work in terms of being underwater. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I get the odd call every now and then where I know all the Marine coordinators in LA, like Matt O'Connor and Will Hall and all the grips that work underwater and all the shooters. And if somebody were to call my dive shop and say, hey, we're shooting this music video and we have 12 talent in the water or whatever, I would advise them to hire water savvy stunt doubles, hire the right personnel, and your shoot in the water is going to go much, much smoother. Sometimes that doesn't happen, and they use the people they know and it slows things down, but you can get through it if people are willing to be patient, because the water it's like stepping into quicksand. It's not like shooting topside at all. It slows things down to about 1/10 of what you would expect, what time budget you would expect to shoot.
Oh yeah.
Topside. You know that you do these elaborate setups underwater, and it just doesn't. It's not fast.
Oh, not at all. No. And the smallest thing that goes wrong, can throw out your whole schedule, because suddenly the one thing you didn't think about is the one thing that went wrong, and it could be a tiny seal or something. Like it's the one thing. Because I don't know if it's the same for you, but like the night before a shoot like this, and even if I'm just doing camera, or if I'm doing whatever, the night before I'm going through everything to go, okay, have I worked that out? What happens if this happens? What changes if I do this? Do we have all these spare parts if we need them? Because generally you're going to miss something on a camera, or it's a seal or something. So the same thing must be the same for you. Like if you've got a job where there's 12 talent in the water the next day, what sort of things are you going through to kind of check them off your list to make sure you're ready for it?
Like backup equipment, what I was saying earlier about winning the trust of the department you're about to help. They don't know who I am. And when you come on set, you're going to dress everybody up in a rubber suit or whatever their wardrobe is. You put a mask on everybody's face and try to read their emotions. It's very difficult. But if you have backup gear, stuff that fits people properly, keeps them warm, breathes without leaking. Yeah. The worst things you could do is show up with a leaky regulator and try to say, oh, it's going to be fine. Even though I could maybe use it, somebody who's never used scuba before, and even though they're only going to be in 3 or 4 feet of water, they see bubbles coming out of it. There goes your trust. So You have to have backup upon backup, and make sure you have enough time to prep those people who aren't water savvy before the shoot starts. You need a little time. Not everyone just takes to this. So a lot of it is time based. And, we did a big job a couple of years ago with Garth Brooks, and where the entire band, you see a lot of music videos where the band is magically alive underwater and they're singing, but they don't have on any scuba equipment. But Garth Brooks comes up with this idea for this song called Dive Bar, where the band is actually in dive equipment, playing their instruments with fins on. So they had to get certified, they got trained, and then they're going to go in 13, 14 feet of water all night long and try to play this song. And it was really interesting. You're trying to juggle their emotions, and is somebody one of the actors or the musicians, his ears are killing him because he hasn't been equalizing properly. Right. So you've got about 4 more takes with this guy. Yeah. But we're not done. So there's a lot of balancing back and forth. I might be getting off topic here, but
no, it's good. This is awesome.
This is you're trying to see, this guy's ears are going to, by the end of the night, he's going to be taking antibiotics in 3 days because he's already strained his ears to a point he's damaging himself, and then you got to tell producer, hey, can we give him a break, and that's, you got to walk on eggshells with that as well. So there's a lot of juggling with the water that you wouldn't normally have topside.
Well, I guess that's the thing, right? Because you're the interface between, say, the first AD and the talent in terms of how to get them to perform this thing underwater. Have you ever had to sort of push back and go, look, they can't do it anymore? Like this is either dangerous or they're so tired that it's not going to happen. Have you ever been in that situation?
Oh yeah, many times. I mean, I know Vance and I were shooting a Justin Bieber thing once, and Bieber shows up ready to work, but he's got a cold. Right. And you when you have a cold, you can't equalize your ears. Your sinuses in your ears are paramount for you to be able to descend 12 feet or whatever we got to do. So I don't know what he did. He might have taken some decongestants, but the guy was a trooper, man. He got in and he did his, they did about 5 takes.
Yeah.
And, he was equalizing, but I could tell it wasn't quite right. So luckily they got what they wanted and they said, all right, you're out of the water. And then the rest of the talent did their, choreography, and he was able to go and rest because he was just, I could see it on his face when he showed up. He just didn't feel good,
Right.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, there's stuff like that where you just hope that nobody's going to go home with a broken eardrum or something like that because they tried too hard.
Right. Yeah.
Or there's hypothermia. I've seen, when they hire somebody who's typically, they'll hire somebody who's waif thin to be a certain, somebody who's really, really thin. They don't have a lot of bioprene like some of us do. So they're going to get cold,
Yeah.
but they have to be dressed in a, white flowing dress with no wetsuit showing or anything like that. So basically they're going to freeze. And once they turn blue, you can tell they're not acting anymore because they're just too cold to get the shot. So you gotta get them out of the water, go get them warmed up, get them some hot soup, see if they can go again. But sometimes they can't.
Yeah.
So I've been there.
Yeah.
And the director wants one more take, but you look at the skin tone and the lips are already purple and they're shivering, and you go, the take isn't going to be any good. They're not going to act. You're just going to see goosebumps and shivering. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. What's the opposite of that? Like, what's the most amazing, like, kind of talent story you have of someone who kind of maybe wasn't prepared, but then totally nailed this thing?
I think I've seen more from crew. I mean, I've been with some shooters underwater where, they're not water people. They may have shot underwater once or twice, and a director of photography. And, you just give them a few tips and tricks. And by the end of the day, you think, this guy, I could certify him right now. He's stellar in the water. He just spent some time in the water, 5, 6, 7 hours in the water. And by the end of it, I feel like this guy he's got it.
Yeah.
Just take him in the ocean for 2 or 3 days and let him do his skills. He's a certified diver. He's got it down. But yeah, as far as talent goes, I'm trying to think, the Aqua Lilies, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We've worked with them. You've worked with them.
Yeah.
Those guys are amazing. They're talent, but they're synchronized swimmers. So when you get somebody like that, who's your talent, even though you're a safety diver, it's like, hey, these girls could rescue me. They can hold their breath longer than I can.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Upside down with their legs hanging out of the water.
I know.
Yeah.
They're so amazing, those girls.
I get with those guys, and maybe this is something that like is on your radar too, is that, there can be like 6 or 8 of them in the water at once. And how they don't smash into each other and break each other's noses and stuff, I will never know.
Yeah.
There's limbs flying everywhere. It is choreographed so well, and they're so good under the water with their spatial awareness and all that sort of stuff. When you have a team like that with the Aqua Lily, say if there's 6 of them, is there 6 of you in the water as well, or is it just you? How do you kind of deal with that?
Well, if it's the Aqua Lilies, yeah, I mean, I think we had 8 on this one shoot. There's a member of Arcade Fire who did a big underwater production a few years ago. The music is called Sam Patch. It's really, really great song.
Yeah.
That's his group. But we hired one of our dive masters, Tony Sam, who's also a local actor and comedian in LA. And he's a dive master. But the pool they chose to shoot in is 18 to 22 feet deep, depending on how much water they put in it. And it was a night shoot. So Tony had to wear tie, business shoes. He had to look like a business person underwater and be totally unaffected by 20 feet of water above him, sit at a desk, type on a computer, and then the Aqua Lilies are swimming over his desk and trying to distract him and giving him cups of water from the water cooler from the office that we built underwater.
Yeah.
And we weren't so much worried about, we had 4 safety divers on that. We weren't so much worried about the Aqua Lilies. We were more worried about Tony because he's dressed in a business suit and he's we have masks in our pockets for him to be able to put a mask on and give his eyes a rest. But there's 20 feet of water. If something happens, we have to bring him up 20 feet. So that's more the worry. The aqua lilies, they dive down and swim around, and they don't really touch scuba most of the time. They do their breath hold thing and come back up. They could tread water with no hands and stuff like that. But when you're dressed in a business suit, there's not much. You can't swim. When you're certain types of wardrobe, that becomes the real worry. Is this actor really can't get to the surface?
Oh yeah,
dressed in a flowing white. Vance and I shot a Meatloaf video years ago, and we were in 20 feet of water at Universal, and the actresses were in these white flowing dresses that were just impossible to swim in. So, even though there are only two of them, we put more safety divers on that because the nature of the wardrobe.
Oh yeah, because it becomes like a big parachute under the water. The drag is incredible with those sorts of things.
Yeah. I always want to ask the question when somebody wants us to help with safety is, do you have any storyboards so I can see what they're wearing? Because they'll just tell you, oh yeah, we got 10 people in the water, but well, are they Olympic swimmers, or are they, how are they dressed? Are they supposed to be walking down a street underwater, or are they going to have instruments around their neck, guitars, keyboards? You got to factor in what would the rescue look like? How much strapping would we have to cut them out of their wardrobe? These are the thoughts that go through your head.
So say in that sort of workflow, or that kind of procession of events, when you're booked onto a production, how much is kind of already done before they get you involved that you kind of then look at and go, oh, this needs to change, or how involved are you in the logistics of the underwater stuff? Hardly
ever am I able to change anything. If I can see storyboards, that is a huge help. I've actually turned jobs down because I just thought it was what they wanted to do was too dangerous and they weren't going to change it. And I've talked myself out of a few big jobs that I think I probably could have done, but I wasn't, I just wasn't on board with the full safety aspect of it.
Right.
And being a scuba instructor, you think about a lot of the accidents you may have seen or other people have had and the liability aspect of it. And you just go, I don't want to be part of this, Yeah. And then you go and watch the film later that you were supposed to be working on. I could have worked on a lot of some bigger films, and I went, wow, they pulled it off and it was amazing,
Right.
So they got the right guy.
Do you look at those things and then kind of reverse engineer how they did it, or is it so behind the scenes that it's just, okay, they did it, I'm just not sure what they did?
No. One that I trained, there's an actor called Scott Kahn who works on Hawaii Five-0, but he and Paul Walker and Jessica Alba, they did this film, I think it was called Into the Blue years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And I trained Scott Kahn. He wanted the part, but he didn't scuba dive. So he and I rented a pool and we did underwater fights for a day. We went underwater and rolled around on the bottom, and I pulled his regulator out of his mouth and made him swim laps underwater and wouldn't give him air. We did all kinds of crazy stuff, and he got the part. And then he talked me up and said, well, maybe you could come on and help us with the water stunts. I wanted to do the water stunts in still water, in a pool, Cheatham. They wanted to shoot the stunts in the Bahamas at, Stewart Coves, where they've shot tons and tons of stuff down there. It might have helped if I'd have gone down there and actually looked where they were going to shoot, but it wasn't that deep. It just looked like it was that deep. But they hired the right stunt people to do these. The guy who doubled Paul Walker, I can't remember his name right now, but man, he did a great job. There's a scene where he has to swim down with his hands tied, wearing a pair of jeans, no fins, no mask. He swims down to get inside this boat, and his hands are tied behind his back. So, they're not really tied behind his back, but still, it has to appear that he's going all the way down. And the shot was in the film that he swims easily 12 to 15 feet without equalizing.
Oh, yeah.
No mask on his face. It was a great stunt.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, they got the right guy, So But I could have worked on that film, gone to the Bahamas and had a nice cushy gig for a little bit. But I did what I could do, and I think I was working on something else while they were doing that anyway, so I didn't lose out too bad. But yeah, that's the kind of thing. It's like, what's the balance between? There's definitely risk involved.
Yeah, absolutely. So. Yeah. And that's the thing with any of this stuff that we do underwater. I think there's, it's that risk versus reward kind of situation. Mm-hmm. And, I think about the things that I wouldn't do because I thought it was too risky. And you have to just be happy that you didn't try it because, it might have worked. It might not have worked. You don't know. It's really such a unknown thing until it's done.
Yeah, it's true. I've trained a lot of actors for roles that they were about to do. And it's been, that's the fun part, is training them in a pool, getting them certified, whatever. But then actually being there on the set, watching them do the stunt, that's not the fun part. That's more of a traumatic portion of the job.
Right, yeah. Watching a child go out on the high rope.
Yeah. I remember I trained Patrick Stewart. He wanted to get certified anyway, but he had to do this film with Mel Gibson where Mel Gibson he played this kind of manic, I can't remember the name of the film, but they hold Patrick Stewart underwater. They're like kind of waterboarding Patrick Stewart, and he has to be able to not, they hold him underwater upside down and then they pull him out. And he got certified with me years before that, but he said, his certification and his training helped him get through that water, that horrible shot, right?
Yeah.
But that's the fun part, is when an actor they got a job, that there's going to be some water work on it, but they've always wanted to get certified anyway. That's really cool.
Because they're already into it. They're already wanting to be under there. Yeah.
Yeah. When you have someone they're just doing it for the work aspect, and I've certified lots of crew members, DPs, talent, and even stunt people. They don't really want to dive, but they want to work in the water.
Right.
And some of them wind up being quite good at it, but they don't dive. They only dive when there's water work.
Yeah.
So, but it's a pleasure to be on set with people who, I would just say, water savvy. They're water savvy. They know how they're supposed to move in the water, and they know not to panic, that, a few more seconds, they get it worked out. Yeah, it's just great when you have people that like the water.
Yeah, and it is like you can tell these types of people, like they're the ones who, they kind of understand water a little bit more than others. So some people really fight against it, and it is such maybe not so much of a fear for them, but they don't give into it enough. Yeah. It's that sort of thing where it's like a Chinese finger trap. The more you kind of fight the water, the more it works against you.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I go on set sometimes and I look there's a guy named Rob Trussell, and he took a NAUI instructor class from me a few years ago. And I've worked with him underwater so many times, but you can see the guy, he's looking for something to do all the time. He's a grip, but he's on a set and he's underwater and he's looking for the next thing. He's just finished doing some task. He's always looking for the next one to do. And there's a lot of grips like that. There's a guy named Soda Pop. Yeah. I think you might have interviewed him, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
That guy, he's a water guy.
Yeah.
I would say he's a water rat.
Yeah. Yes, he is.
And when you go on a set with Soda Pop and Rob Trussell and you got all their friends around, hey, if something happens, I'm the safety guy, and if something happens to me, I'm pretty sure these guys are going to pull me out.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So, it's always a pleasure to work with either talent or crew that they like at least they like the water. They might not dive in the ocean a lot, but when you go on a set with them in the pool, you realize, well, they should be out diving because,
Yeah, they're built for it.
Yeah, they're built for it.
Yeah. I think that's the thing I love about this whole industry, is just getting to be with people like that, because we all have a different way of getting into the underwater world, whether it was, from being a kid and just spending days in the pool, or whether it was something you got into in your 40s or something. But there is this underlying love and respect for the water itself,
Yes.
And everyone finds an emotional response when they go under, when the silence hits your ears and you hold your breath or you sit on the regulator, there's an emotional response. And I think we all kind of feel that in each other.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, you talk about people coming from different worlds too. You know, sometimes you're on a job where Vance and I got hired to shoot this thing years and years ago when we shot on film, and it was really before digital was happening. And Vance's wife was producing it, but we had to hire local talent like kids. So we go down on the dock, go in Cozumel, and we find these kids that are going to chase coins to the bottom. So somebody's going to throw the coins into the water. We're underwater and we're shooting upward into the sun, and these kids are swimming down. We don't know who these kids are.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we watch them swim around a little bit and see if they can swim, and then they just dive off and swim down 15 feet chasing these quarters, you know?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And that's the shot.
Yeah.
But you can tell they don't care if they're getting paid. They love the water.
Yeah.
You know, they would stay in there for 10 hours if you ask them to, you know?
Yeah, totally.
It's just people that like the water. They all come together, and, you know, you can just talk for hours about things you've done and where you've been and animals that you might have seen. Or it doesn't have to be film people. I mean, I could strike up a conversation with anybody who they're a master swimmer.
Yeah.
I meet those kinds of people all the time. You know, they're pushing 80 years old, but they swim every day.
Yeah.
And they don't miss it. They don't miss a day of swimming. So
Oh, absolutely.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love water people.
Oh, totally. Do you have a preference for when you're working, for whether you're doing safety in open water or in closed water, like in tanks and stuff?
Well, I always like closed water because it takes Mother Nature out of the equation. And when you're on a budget, so somebody calls you up and they go, well, we don't have a lot of money to do this shot, but we want to shoot it off Marina Del Rey. And you just hear this in my head. It just goes, wah, 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 wah.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the water in Marina Del Rey is not going to be stunningly clear.
Yeah.
You're probably not going to have more than 5 feet of visibility. And you go, no, don't do it in Marina Del Rey. Okay, well, we want to do it in the ocean. Okay, we'll go to Catalina. Oh, we don't have the money to go to Catalina.
Right.
All right, we'll do it in a pool.
Yeah.
So do it in a pool. Mother Nature, there's not going to be any crashing waves in the pool. The visibility is controllable by you and the pool guy.
Yeah.
Do it in a pool. That's my answer. And I've seen that over and over and over again, where they try to just go out on a boat, throw a bunch of equipment in the water, throw the talent in the water, and it ends miserably. Nobody dies, but they don't get the shot.
Yeah.
So they wasted a day. And you can cheat so many things. I mean, look how The Abyss was made.
Oh, yeah.
It looks like it was shot in, 7,000 feet of water, and was shot in 15, 20 feet of water.
Yeah. In an old power station. Or a discontinued power station. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what if you want to get the shot, try and do it in a pool. Or if that was kind of my downfall for Into the Blue with Scott Kahn was, I was like, man, these shots there should be a set built, heated pool. You can do twice as many takes. Yep. Nobody's going to get hurt. But they were like, nope, we got the perfect location. We're going to do it in the ocean.
Right.
And they pulled it off. But so many times I get those calls where they don't have a lot of money. They want to just go out on a small boat, shoot it sort of guerrilla. Sometimes it works out. I would say most of the time it does not.
Do you think with some of these productions that kind of opt to do it in open water, that there's a romantic kind of adventurousness to shooting out there that they're kind of looking forward to? Whereas, shooting around a pool can be kind of boring for everyone who's not in the water. Do you feel like they're kind of
I think they're... Well, there's some things where you want the surf, you want the crashing waves, right?
Yeah.
You can't really cheat that part of it in the pool, but the underwater part of it, you can cheat in a pool.
Yeah.
And I don't think they understand the people who shoot underwater, you got Pete Romano, and you got David McDonald and Vance Burberry, and you got all these professionals, not only in LA, but all over the world. You got people who know what lens to shoot, how to frame it, if you want some wave action, there are ways of doing that very simply. Yep. With a few grips and some set dressing. I think the master of that was Baywatch, years ago when Baywatch was being shot. I could tell what fake kelp looks like, but most people wouldn't know. Yeah. So you put some fake kelp in there, you get a little wave action. Some of the things I've worked on with Matt O'Connor, where we use scooters, and we tie the scooters to the bottom of the pool and turn them on, and it creates a current, a really strong current.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about, a DPV, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So you get
little vehicle.
Yeah. You get that on the bottom, and you point it in the opposite direction, and the talent's swimming underwater, and you put this current on them, and it blows their hair in a beautiful, dramatic way. So there's tricks you can do in the pool.
Oh yeah,
and nobody's going to know.
Well, I think talking to Pete Romano was one of the things that gave me. He's got so many tricks like that. Things like you're in a 9 feet deep or 10 feet deep pool, but you want to do the shot that's going to take 20 feet, but your pool is 20 feet long. Turn the camera sideways, shoot sideways. Because no one's ever going to know. There's no up or down.
Yeah,
it's just those sorts of cheating. There's so much cheating, and it's awesome.
It is awesome. I've been on those shoots where I go, wow, that looks way better than I thought it was going to look. And it would be like Pete Romano or Pete Zuccarini. Do you know Pete Zuccarini?
Yeah.
He's another one you should get on the Underwater podcast. But yeah, I mean, there's so many guys out there that shoot, and they're scuba divers, free divers, they're water people, and they've shot not just professionally, but they're hobbyists too. They go out and they shoot, for their own content, and you learn that way too. You go out and you shoot for your own personal enjoyment, and you learn a lot of tricks that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know Romano was a commercial diver, so he must have learned.
He was in the Navy.
Yeah, he must have learned a lot doing those types of dives as well.
Yeah. So what makes a good safety diver? What's the kind of one quality that you would say that you should have?
Well, you want people who are persons, you want people who like and enjoy working with people. So,
right.
When I get to hire safety divers, I usually hire people that I know who are dive master or instructor or above, and who I've seen work with students who are fearful. We certified up until pandemic time. We certified hundreds and hundreds of divers every year, and I would always hire the people that I work with as instructors. And when you see them work with somebody who doesn't know anything about scuba diving, and then you got to put them with maybe it could be an A-list actor, or it could be an A-list musician, but they're fearful of the water. You want to make sure you've got somebody who matches that level of patience that you see with a beginner, like a student who doesn't, a student who is, worst case scenario, afraid of the water.
Right. Yeah. So someone who's got the temperament for that, who's got the empathy to be able to.
Yes, empathy. Yes. Patience and empathy is always a big one.
And what's the one thing you wish that people on set knew about you guys? Is there one thing that you're always having to explain?
Well, as a safety diver?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think that maybe they think they're intimidated by what they're about to do, which is pretty much, it's just breathe. All you have to do is breathe and relax. But maybe they have some expectation that, we're not going to be patient, or, maybe they're under pressure from the production company to do a shot that they don't really want to do. Yeah. It's just that we're here to help and to be chill and to keep everybody calm.
Yeah.
That's what we want to do.
Yeah. And honestly, man, like all the safety divers and you included that I've ever worked with, always such chill people. And I think it is something to do with the water itself. Like I feel like water people in general are fairly chill just because we kind of have to be under there.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, it's the number one quality for if I'm trying to hire an instructor or someone to work at Hollywood Divers. It's like I just think patience and being cool.
Yeah,
that's your number one with divers. That's the number one asset you could have.
Yeah. So if someone was asking you how they could move from say being an instructor or a master diver to getting on set, what would you suggest as a path? How do they get themselves in there?
Well, I would have answered this differently years ago, but right now what I would say is get a camera, get a housing, get out there and start shooting. Get in the water and start making your own content and make your own reel. You'll learn from doing that. If you have any ideas that you think might make a good underwater scene, get the right people together and get in there and shoot it. and you're going to learn. And, years ago, that would have been impossible because you would have had to buy, thousands of dollars worth of film stock. You would have had to think about getting it developed and renting a film camera, knowing how to expose it. It's, these days, you could shoot with something as small as a tiny little pocket camera or a GoPro, and you could make content that's interesting.
Yeah.
And you put something together. If you have some ideas, put something together, shoot it, and then you have something to show.
Yeah.
And once people see that you're serious and you're out there, you're making your own content, you'll start to get jobs. The other way to do it is pick a department you want to be in. Like the ones I interact with the most are the grips, and grips have a thing called Local 80. The grips are just like everybody else. We're all getting older, and there's got to be new people coming in.
Yeah.
So if you're a diver and you're a personable person, you're a people person, and you're willing to maybe do a few jobs for free on a crew, you'll get some hours.
Is safety divers, are they part of a union as well, or are you kind of outside that whole thing?
I'm not in any union. I mean, I probably could have been by now, but I've worked in every department, camera, stunts, all of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are, that used to fall under stunts. I don't know how that works with, I really don't, I've never got into those discussions about whether I should be in a union or not. It's just, I get in and I'm on the call sheet as a safety diver, and I'm my own crew, or I have 2 or 3 guys with me that are on my crew. And we're just there to help the others and make them look good if we can. We're not there to try to weasel our way in that used to be a lot more of a thing back in the day. If you were supposed to be helping the grips and you helped out camera, well, that wasn't cool. But
right.
All we're trying to do is keep it cohesive. And even though we're our own crew, we're there to help everyone who needs it.
Exactly. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, this has been really cool. Just hearing your whole process and your experiences of doing these things on set and how you got there. Just really enlightening.
Well, thanks, man. It's, hey, you and I have some history. It's cool to talk like this because, when I see you, you're usually getting ready for a shoot, and I'm thinking, oh, how's he going to do that? And then I see the images later and I go, mind blowing stuff.
Right.
I love it. It's just, it's crazy what you're doing, but I enjoy, again, water people are kin, right? And I feel that you and I have this connection as well over the years.
Yeah, of course.
We've been in the ocean. I see you in the shop all the time. I'm happy to see you're working, and I enjoyed doing this interview as much as you
as much as I enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd love it. An underwater podcast. I mean, Who else in the world is doing an underwater podcast?
Maybe not in this way, but the thing is that I have to do now is I actually want to do an underwater podcast. So actually recording it underwater somehow. So
that would be cool.
Yeah. So I might be coming to you with some questions about face masks and underwater comms.
Oh yeah. I got all that stuff.
Yeah.
That'd be a cool experiment. There's this guy in LA, his name is Murray Hidry, and he does these concerts where he puts earphones on people. Like he does them in Central Park, or he'll do them at Yosemite. He has a keyboard that transmits whatever he plays. He plays sort of ethereal new age music that he writes himself. So he's sitting in the middle of a field playing a keyboard and nobody can hear it except for the people wearing the headsets, right?
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So he started doing them underwater a couple of years ago, and I helped him set things up. Oh. So there's an angle. Like this guy, he has speakers going from his keyboard. He plays sitting right beside the pool, and all the concert goers are laying face down in the pool with a snorkel in their mouth. Some of them just float face up with their ears underwater. But they can hear the music because music transmits, or any sound transmits through water very easily, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing to see people laying there with their eyes shut and a mask and snorkel on their face, floating face down for an hour, just listening to music.
Oh, that's amazing.
And there's like 30 of them in the same pool, all listening to the same concert. So yeah, you should do it.
That's
do an
amazing.
underwater. I put an audience down there.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I love that sort of thing because even when I'm like here at my studio, like if I'm pulling out blacks or if I'm doing grip stuff underwater, I get my little underwater speaker and I just pump some music through it. But it's nice to be down there. Like if you're down there for 40 minutes kind of setting something up, it's nice to just have some sounds, like I love the silence, but every now and again I like just having some tunes.
Hearing music underwater is people, who don't dive go, well, how you can't hear underwater. Yes, you can.
Yeah.
I remember this boat at Catalina in Two Harbors. They used to drop one of those speakers, one of those underwater PAs in the water while you're actually diving, and they would play classical music.
Oh, really?
As you swam away from the boat, you didn't hear it. But when you came back to the boat, it was actually a good navigational aid because as you got closer to the boat, the music got louder.
Right.
And you knew if I surface here, I'm going to be close to the boat, right?
Yeah.
But it was pretty cool that they had the idea to play classical music while you're actually diving.
I think the first time I ever really heard music under the water was I was in the Florida Springs and I was shooting some stuff down there. And the Florida Springs is a huge kind of party place for the like the college kids and all that sort of stuff. And generally they stay on the surface and they have their phones in the little waterproof bags and they just float around and get drunk. And I was underneath free diving, shooting with a model, and I'm swimming from one location to another, like 10 feet down. And suddenly I hear Nirvana and I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, am I having a stroke or something? And as I swam closer and closer to this dude who was in like an inflatable ring above me, the music got louder and louder. And as I surfaced right next to him, it was his phone in a little plastic bag in the water playing music that they could hear. But I was listening to Nirvana under the water. It was mind blowing.
Yeah, that's funny that it's Nirvana too, because when you said Nirvana, I'm thinking of that
the
album cover with the baby in the pool.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I was the baby cool. in that scenario. I think.
Yeah.
Hey Hal, this has been awesome, man. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, me too, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening, everyone. And as always, if you like the podcast, please subscribe, review, and share. If you'd like to support the production of these episodes, you can purchase our very cool merchandise at theunderwaterpodcast.com. We've got branded coffee mugs, stickers, beer cozies, and posters featuring our amazing illustration and logo by Joe Hodino. If you'd like to connect with us or learn more about our guests, you can reach us at theunderwaterpodcast.com or on Instagram. We also have a Facebook group where you can discuss the episodes and even get your questions answered by the guests. There's a link to it in the show notes. You can learn more about my underwater photography workshops and mentoring at brettstanley.com or Brett S Photo on Instagram. The Underwater Podcast is presented and produced by me, Brett Stanley, and our music is Neo by Oh Boy. Keep creating, everyone. I'll see you in the water.